All right, guys, we are going to look at our next lesson. It's about powers and roots, and a whole lot of this you have already seen. Um, this should be a pretty easy lesson. I need you to make sure that you have the attachment of the worksheets printed out. There are, let's see, 11 examples we're going to work through on here, just as if we were sitting in the classroom on the dry erase board. I know you have the answers for the examples, but we're going to work through them one at a time, go over why we're doing what we're doing, and then go over what you guys are going to do for homework. So again, make sure you have the printout in front of you as we start going through this. All right, let's jump into this. So again, make sure you have this, your lesson 7. It printed out, for me, it printed out weird for some reason. There's like this big space on page 3. Guys, it goes on to page 4. There's 3 exercises, so when you get there, just remember there should be 3 exercises. All right, so the first thing that this talks about, and these are all things that you know. Let me get my pen working here. This is called a radical sign. You guys know that. It's a square root. All right, so this is the exponent. 6 squared means 6 times 6, which is 36. The radical is the opposite of that. This is saying the square root of 36 is what? What times what is 36? The answer is 6. Okay, you've already done that. You know that. We also talked last week, or at some point, I don't even remember when we talked about it, something like this. And I'm going to use the same example from your worksheet. When you have a power raised to a power, remember, power to a power. Do not forget your understood ones, first of all. Always remember those ones. We multiply them. We kind of distribute that exponent into those parentheses and every exponent there. So this becomes 4 to the 3rd power, a to the 9th power, because we multiply powers to powers, b to the 3rd power. Okay, we've already kind of talked about that. Now we're just going to kind of put that into a little bit of a different form. So let me get a clean, all right, here's a clean slide. So let's go over example 1, which actually I think I just did example 1. But example 1 is worded, it says, find the cube of 4a cubed b. Remember, your cubed means the exponent of 3. You have squared, which is always 2, and then cubed is always the 3rd power. So when we have, oh, let me get my, there we go. Nope, let me get my pen working. There we go. So if we have something like this, and we're told to find the cube. Now, we just did this, I know that. But I want to make sure you understand. If we're cubing something, if we're squaring something, if we're to the 4th powering a term, we need to put in those parentheses. Remember, we've talked a lot about parentheses. Parentheses keeps that whole term together, that whole unit together. And the reason I want to put those parentheses in before I cube it is because I need to make sure I remember everything in those parentheses is being squared or cubed or whatever. For the most part, you're going to see the problem written and not be told to cube or to square. It's going to be written. If you come across one that's in a word problem form, remember to put those parentheses in so that everything in the term gets squared or cubed. Okay, let me erase all of these pieces so that we can move on to when we have it done. Okay, the second, let's see, let's go to example 2 because it's written in a fraction and I know how you guys feel about fractions. So first of all, it tells us to square it. All right, to square something means to multiply it by itself. So let me write down the example. It's -5. Y'all thought my handwriting was bad on our whiteboard. This pen system here makes it even worse. Okay, we're going to square it. And what did I just say? Make sure you put parentheses in even though they're not written, because I need to make sure all of that stays together and everything gets that exponent distributed into it. So it's telling me to square it, right? Let me check it. Square, yes. Okay. And it's typed on your paper. You can see that we've put in the parentheses. We've written the little 2 on the outside because that's what squared means. And now we have to distribute this 2 to every piece. Now remember, even that whole number has an understood 1 exponent. Several of you lose those 1s. We've talked about that in class, I guess 2 weeks ago when we actually were in our classes. If you're one of those who loses your understood 1s, take a second and just write those in. Now we're going to distribute our exponent in. Remember, power to a power, we multiply. So I'm going to just distribute this to every single part. I know that's a lot of arrows and kind of messy, but I'm going to distribute that exponent to every single piece in here. So what I'm going to have now is -5. Guys, that negative is also being squared. So I'm going to put that in a parenthesis by itself to keep that negative with the 5. Remember, when a negative is inside of the parentheses, it's being squared. This negative is inside. That means it's being squared, all right? If you want to go ahead and just change that sign to the positive because a negative squared is a positive, because squared means times itself, and a negative times a negative equals a positive, that's fine. I'm just going to put mine in like you can see up there in the parentheses so that I can just remember that. All right, my A is going to be to the 6th power because 3 times 2 is 6. Remember, we're not adding x to the 4th power. And then my bottom, 7 squared, B to the 4th power. And you know what? This is not even written down correctly. I missed, guys, if you're looking at your example 2, I missed a C right here, I think. Yep, there should be a C there in the example. So let me add that in right now because you're going to look back at your paper and be like, hold on, this doesn't match. Okay, so now I believe that is correct. Now listen, when I have exponents in here that I can solve, I need to go ahead and simplify my answer as far down as I can. So if there's like variables with exponents, I can combine those. But this right here has an answer. This right here has an answer. So if I can simplify it down, I need to. All right, -5 squared is 25. A6 x4 can't simplify any, so I'm going to leave that. 7 squared is 49. B squared, C squared. This is my answer. And I know how those kind of answers, you just love the way that looks. Not any simpler. But that's how you're going to leave your answer. Okay? That's it on this one. So just remember, make sure you put it in a set of parentheses to keep it all together. Add in your understood 1s. Distribute your exponent by multiplying, and then simplify. Guys, those steps are not written on here. It's worked on your worksheet, but nowhere on here are your steps written. So I'm going to say it again, and I would suggest that you write it down. Step 1, add in parentheses. Step 2, add in understood 1s. Step 3, distribute your exponent in by multiplying. Step 4, simplify. Let's look at example 3. And I know we talked about a problem like this when we were working on, I think, solving for x. So you have this whole thing here. And again, we have these parentheses again. Remember, the parentheses sticks everything together. So what I have here is I have x plus y squared. This is the hardest kind that you're going to have. What does squared mean? Do you remember? It means times itself. So what I really have here is x plus y. I don't know why my y's look that different, sorry, times x plus y. Now, I look inside my parentheses, I can't do anything, so I have to look outside, and outside is another set of parentheses, so now I have to use that distributive property where I have to do that times plus that times that, oops, and then all of that. You've done distributive property. I'm going to work it real quick. X times x is x squared. Here, let me put my lines as I do them. X times x is x squared. X times y is xy. Sorry. Y times x is, let me change that back to black. I don't like that blue there. And remember, order doesn't matter when I'm dealing with terms like that because I am multiplying, and order doesn't matter in multiplication. Now I have like terms here. Again, the order doesn't matter. XY is the same thing as YX. So my complete answer is, and I know I did that fast, but we already know distributive property. So the reason that example is in there, and you're not really going to have many like that. Let me look real quick at your work, your homework. You'll have a couple like that. Just remember distributive property. If you have forgotten how to do that, let me know, and I can send you a refresher course since we're not face-to-face to ask that question. We should be able to fit example 4 and 5 and maybe 6 on this one slide. So example 4 is this. Now, you should already know this. You should have seen this maybe 6th, 7th grade. I don't remember. Remember this little thing right here is called the index. The index is whether it's the squared root or the cubed root or the 4th root or the 5th root. This is like the only time in algebra when you see something like this that it's not an understood 1. This has an understood 2 there. So this one is the cubed root of 8. So what times what times what, or what cubed is 8? And the answer is 2. 2 times 2 is 4 times 2 is 8. So that index just tells you how many of that of the number that you need. Okay. Example 5 is the 4th root of 81. So the what times what times what times what is 81, and the answer is 3. Now guys, if you have a calculator, there is a way to do this, and I'm looking at my calculator right now. I don't have the one in front of me, so let me think. Most of them have a button that looks like this, and then above it, I believe it looks like this. Like I said, I have the wrong calculator in front of me. And so just kind of play around with this. You probably will have to hit shift or second, depending on which calculator that you have, in order to activate this. Kind of play around with that. Usually what you have to do is hit the index first, which is this little number, then shift this, then your outside number. I'm not there to walk you through it, so just kind of play around with it to see what order you have to enter that in. If you can't figure it out, FaceTime me and we'll walk through it on your calculator. Now, example 6 looks kind of terrifying for those of you who hate fractions, which I think is like everyone in the entire world. The 4th root of 16 over 81. It sounds a lot scarier than it is. What this is asking you is, what is the 4th root of 16? What is the 4th root of 81? Now, before you ask, you can enter this in your calculator, but you're going to have to pay attention to how your calculator works and how you have to implement your parentheses to keep your fraction together. If you don't enter it right, it's only going to 4th root the top or 4th root the bottom, and then you're going to be all wonky. It may just be easier to do the top part and then the bottom part. 4th root of 16 is 2. 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 is 16. Fourth root of 8 is 3. 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 is 81. And so your answer is 2/3. Okay? Guys, here's what I think we're going to do. I just was looking at your homework as I was flipping slides on here to do the next one. I kind of think I don't want to do the second part of this lesson until Thursday. I think what I would like for you to do is all of exercise 1. There are 30 of these. And so what you're going to do is, here's what we're going to do. Let me erase that. We're going to pretend that we're in class and that I'm sitting there with you or standing there with you. And what I want you to do right now is I want you to do number 1. Example, or exercise 1, number 1. I want you to pause this video, do number 1, and then pause the video, I should say. And then turn it back on to check to make sure that you're right. And we're going to do a couple of these, but start with number 1. Do number 1, and then come back and look at this. Okay, I'm going to assume you were a good student and did what you were told to do and have worked number 1 and have an answer. And now we're going to check it. So here's number 1. A, B squared, C cubed, all of that squared. Okay, we don't have to worry about step 1 adding the parentheses because they're already there. Step 2 is add and understood ones. Step 3 is distribute that exponent in using multiplication. So we have A, 1 times 2 is 2. B, 2 times 2 is 4. Can you say hi? 3 times 2 is 6. And then your last step was to simplify anything you can simplify, but I don't have any like bases. I don't have any numbers. There's no coefficient. This is as easy or as simple as this can get. So that's it for number 1. Okay, do number, careful Jace, do number 18, pause the video, and then come back and check it with me. All right, I know you've worked number 18, and all you're doing is coming back to check your work, right? Okay, here's number 18. Let me double check, make sure I wrote it down right. Negative 3x over 2y cubed. All right, step 1, insert parentheses, already done for me. Step 2, insert any understood ones. Well, I'm going to insert all these ones because everything has an understood one. Coefficients and variables. Step 3, distribute my exponent in using multiplication. Why? Because the power rule is, or the exponential rule is, a power raised to a power means we multiply. Okay? So negative 3 to the first power, and because I'm working with a number here with a sign, I'm going to put it in parentheses and then I'm going to change my exponent. Again, I don't have to, but that way I don't lose that negative. Okay, because remember, negatives have to be squared and cubed and fourth rooted and all those things when it's in the parenthesis. Okay, x to the first power cubed becomes x over 3. 2 to the first power cubed becomes 2 cubed. Y to the first power cubed becomes y cubed. There's my third step. I've distributed my exponent in using multiplication. You're getting a little dance back there from my Jace Thomas. Now my last step is to simplify what can be simplified. Coefficients, negative 3 cubed. Negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3 is negative 27. 2 cubed is 8. 2 times 2 times 2. And I'm going to leave it like this. Don't worry about making it flat like we were doing whenever we had a class last time and had exponents and fractions. This is it. That's it. So put in your understood ones, distribute your exponent using multiplication, and then simplify. Okay, you guys can skip number 21. I don't even want you to look at that one because there's an in exponent. We're not ready for that, okay? So skip number 21. I'll remind you again when I assign homework in a minute. Let's do number 27. Do number 27, pause the video, and then come back and check it. These are going to be the hardest ones because it has distributive property in here. Most of you were doing pretty good on distributive property. There was one thing I need to remind you of, which I will remind you of here. All right. I'm going to work, well, what does the squared mean? Remember, it means times itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and write this whole thing out. This, hold on one second, times this. Remember distributive property, you're going to take this first term and multiply it. 5a times 5a, multiply whole numbers, add coefficients. I'm going to say that again. Multiply whole numbers, add coefficients. 5 times 5 is 25. A times a is a squared. Then, and here's where a lot of you guys were messing up before, make sure it goes to every term. So it doesn't just go to the first term, it also goes to the second term. Multiply whole numbers, add exponents. 5a times negative 4b. 5 times negative 4. A times B, I can't do anything with. It just becomes AB. Okay? And remember, I told you guys before, if you will draw these lines, you'll kind of know when you're done with that first term of the first set of parentheses. Now I have to do the same thing to my second set of information in my parentheses. This is negative 4b. Watch your signs. Negative 4b times 5a. Multiply coefficients, add exponents. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. B times A, I'm going to go ahead and write it in alphabetical order. We've talked about that. It doesn't matter what order it is, but our brains like it better in alphabetical order. And mathematically, it should be in alphabetical order. If it's not going to be wrong. Then negative 4b times negative 4b. Multiply coefficients. Negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. B times b is b squared, because remember, we have an understood 1 here. We have an understood 1 there. When we're multiplying, we add exponents. Okay? Now we have to see if we have any like terms in distributive property. And here I have an AB term. Here I have an AB term. So I'm going to add like terms. Now, this is where you have to pay attention, because when I am adding like terms, I add my coefficients and my term stays. I'm not going to add anything when it comes to my letters and exponents. The term stays. Negative 20ab minus 20ab. When I'm adding like terms, I add my coefficients and I keep my term. So negative 20 plus negative 20 is going to be negative 40. I don't have any other a squares. That stays. Add your coefficient, keep your term. And then I don't have any other b squareds, so that's going to stay. All right. Now, that was kind of a quick overview of distributive property, but we've been doing that for a while, so hopefully you remember that. All right, we're going to stop there. We're not going to look at the second section of this, so don't worry right now about example 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. We're going to come back and do that. So what I want you to do for homework is exercise 1, numbers 1 through 30, skip 21. Skip 21. I mean, you can try it if you want. Now, if I look at number 11 is, oh, wrong thing. Where's your glasses? Oh, they're on. Number 11 is a little bit different because it has a letter for an exponent. So let's look at that. That's an N, guys. Which is the same way 21 is. So let's go ahead and talk about it. Add in your understood ones. Distribute that exponent in. What's 1 times N? Just N. 1 times N again is just N. 1 times N is just N. And I know that's weird and more uncomfortable than a usual exponent is because it's a letter. But it's going to be fine. And that's going to be my answer for that. So for homework, do exercise 1. Okay? I can't really even require that you show work because some of these there's no work to even do. What I would like for you to do is if you want me to check it, you're welcome to take a picture and send me some and I can check it that way. Just do these on notebook paper. Or if you print this handout, if you printed this worksheet out, you can put your answers on the paper and then don't worry about turning it in until we go back to school next week. Thursday we'll have another video and we will go through the rest of this this lesson. Okay? Good luck. Text me if you have any questions.